Hello scholars, you're welcome back to my channel. This is the place where science is made easy, comprehensive and interesting. In this video lesson, we are going to look at one of the most tested and important skills for rearranging formulas and solving questions in the examination. So by the end of this video, you should be able to rearrange formulas and solve questions confidently and without fear. So if you are ready, do it to get your writing materials, hit the like and subscribe button and let's get started. We'll begin this lesson by looking at an introduction to the change of subject formula. But before we look at the definition, let's take a look at this simple illustration. So let's say we have four brothers in a room. We have red, blue, green and yellow. So they are all in room 1. And then red, being the eldest, tells the others that he wants to stay in this room alone. Now take note of this word, alone. Now what does that mean? Since he wants to stay alone, blue has to leave room 1 and come to room 2. Mind you, they have 2 rooms in this house. Yellow has to leave room 1 and come to room 2. And likewise, green has to leave room 1 and also come to room 2. And because of that instruction, the setting will now look like this. So red will be alone in room 1. And then the other 3 brothers, green, blue and yellow, will all be in room 2. Now, why is this happening? Because red, being the eldest, has told the other brothers that he wants to stay alone, meaning that the other brothers have to leave room 1 and move to room 2. Mind you, they have to go through a passage. Now, that passage in mathematics is the equal to, so they have to pass through the equal to sign. Now, another illustration, just to additionally gain some knowledge on change of subject formula, is that let's say we have 2 countries that are close. Let's say we have Nigeria on the left and then America on the right. Now, countries are separated by what we call borders. Now, the border in mathematics is equal to, again, the border is the equal to sign. So let's say we have 2 friends, A and B. So we have A and we have B. Both of them, they stay in Nigeria. So this is A and then this is B. They both stay in Nigeria. Now, B decided to leave Nigeria and migrate to America. So B leaves Nigeria and migrate to America. So B has to go through this border. So B has to go through this border. Now, when B leaves Nigeria and comes to America, so we have B now in America. Now, if B stays in America for some time, now B will not be regarded to as an American. Initially, when B was in Nigeria, B was called a Nigerian. But after staying in America for some certain time and then fulfilling their laws, will now refer to B as an American, or some person will say a Nigerian American or a black American. So what do you observe? There will be some changes from Nigerian to either a black American, a Nigerian American, or just an American. So also when we make certain things subject of the formula, there will be some changes that will take place. Either we have a plus, and when this plus crosses this equality sign, which is the equal to sign, it will change to minus. So mind you, during change of subject formula, there are some changes that will always take place. So change of subject formula simply means making a variable to stand alone on one side of the equation. Now there are some key terms here. The first is variable. Some person might ask, what's a variable? Now variable is simply anything that can change, and it comes from the word vary. Now vary means to change. So in mathematics, anything that has that ability to change from one number to another is what we call a variable. And in mathematics, they are represented with alphabets. So when you see things like x, for example, x can be anything. X can be 1, x can be 2, x can be 3, x can even be 1,000, x can even be -1. So anything that has the ability to change is what we refer to as a variable. So we are simply trying to make a variable to stand alone. Remember the red brothers telling the other brothers he wants to stay alone in one room. That is one side of the equation. Now, what's an equation, by the way? Anything or any expression that has the equal to sign or the equality sign is what we call an equation. So provided there is an equal to sign, or we can call it the equality sign. The equality sign is what we refer to as an equation. So even if we are told that A is equal to B plus C, provided there is an equality sign, this is an equation. So for example, in this case, we have this expression y is equal to 5x plus 3. Now, if you look at this equation, you find out that y is on this side alone. The division sign is, the equality sign is the separating sign. So on this side, we have y. So it simply means in this case, y is the subject of this formula. So it means that it is alone on one side of the equation. So the next thing we are going to look at are the steps for the change of subject formula. And the first thing you want to do is to isolate the term containing the variable you want or the variable of interest. To isolate means to separate. Now the term is simply what contains the variable, or that variable could be standing alone in some cases. So in the exam, they could tell you to make x the subject of the formula. So this x is the variable. Then this 5x is the term that contains the variable, because x and 5, they are together. So we have to make this term to stand alone first of all, or we have to isolate it. To isolate it means we have to remove this 3y to this other side. And by doing that, we have 5x is equal to 8. Now when plus crosses the equating sign, it's just like a Nigerian going to America. That name the person bears will change with time. So when this plus crosses, plus will turn to minus. So this is going to be a minus 3y. Then the next thing we have to do is to reverse the order of arithmetical operation. In fact, this is where it actually begins from. Now, the order of arithmetical operation is what we know as BODMAS. Now, the B here stands for bracket. We know B to be bracket. We know O to be order. O to be order. Now, order can either be power, it can be a root, or it can be of itself, OFF. Now, of here means multiplication. Then D stands for division. Then the M stands for multiplication. And then we have A, which is addition. We have A is addition. And lastly, we have S to be subtraction. So this is what BODMAS stands for. So the order simply tells us that when you are doing or performing arithmetical operation, solve bracket first, followed by order, followed by division, multiplication, addition, and lastly, you should solve subtraction. But in change of subject formula, we are doing the reverse, in the sense that we are moving from the bottom to the top. And that means that you should solve for subtraction first, then addition, then multiplication, division, order, and finally bracket. So bracket should be the last thing you should touch when you are making certain variables subject of the formula. So that's why I say reverse that order. So we are going to look at them when we start solving questions. So the third thing is that if the variable is within a bracket or a root, or if that variable is within a fraction or a denominator, you should remove carefully. And now, what are those things we must consider when we are removing other things? Because remember, when a variable wants to stand alone, it means you have to remove the other things that are attached to it. Now, those things could be attached by addition, they could be attached by addition, they could be attached by subtraction, multiplication, division. It could be a power, it could be a root. Now, when removing them, we are going to remove them across this equality sign. Now, that's very important because you must cross the equality sign to the other side. Now, these are certain things you must know. When addition sign crosses this equality sign and comes to the other side, it will now become subtraction. When subtraction crosses, it is going to be an addition. Next, when multiplication crosses this sign, it's going to be a division. And when division crosses, it's going to be multiplication. Now, this is a power. When the power crosses the equality sign, it's going to be a root. And then when a root, so this is a root here, when this root crosses the equality sign, it's going to be a power. So in essence, we can simply say that the opposite of addition is subtraction. And we can also say that the opposite of multiplication is division. And likewise, we can also say that the opposite of a root is a power. So when any of these guys crosses the equality sign, they are simply going to be the opposite of themselves. So addition will turn to subtraction, subtraction will turn to addition, multiplication will turn to division, division will turn to multiplication, a root will turn to a power, and the power will turn to a root. So these are basic things you must know when you want to make certain variables subject of the formula. So the fourth step is that if the variable appears more than once, the best thing you ought to do is to factorize. Now let's explain. If you have a variable in more than one place, let's say we have 3x plus bx is equal to y. and you are told to make x subject to a formula. In this case, you have x here and you have x here. So you simply can't leave this one here and you simply can't leave this one here at the same time, because why? X wants to stand alone. Now what we are going to do, we are going to factorize. To factorize, we are simply going to take out the x. So you can see that there's x here and there's x here. So I'm going to take out that x, then open a bracket. When I remove the x, what is left? You have 3 here, and then what's left here? You have b is equal to y. So in this case, you have extracted x from this entire expression. So that is what we refer to as factorization. So you just simply withdraw out x and then gather the other guys in a bracket. So lastly, if the variable is the denominator, you multiply both sides. So that's why if we have 1 over x is equal to, let's say, 3, for example. Now, I want to make x subject to a formula. We cannot leave it as a denominator. Rather, you do what we call cross multiplication. So this is like over 1, you cross multiply. Now, 3 times x will be 3x, then 1 times 1 is 1. Then from here, we are simply going to divide. So this is going to be divided by 3, and then this is going to be divided by 3 when we stroke out 3. So x will be equal to 1 over 3. So in this case, s is equal to 1 over 3. Now, back to this one we have here. What we are going to do is that we have x, 3 plus b is equal to y. We are just going to divide outside by 3 plus b, divide side by 3 plus b, divide side by 3 plus b. Then this will cancel this. So your final answer in that case will be x equal to y over 3 plus b. So those are the basic steps we need to know when we want to make certain things subject or certain variables subject of the formula. So in this section, we are going to play with some practice question. Now, our first question here says, make x the subject of the formula. In this equation, y is equal to 3x minus 4 all over 5. So what we are going to do is simple. The best thing you should do is that if you have a number or a variable standing on its own, just make it to be over 1. Now, it's just like having 2. 2 can also be written as 2 over 1. Or you have 3. 3 can also be written as 3 over 1. So when we have this, we can just put an over 1. And then we cross multiply. So the first step I'm going to take is we are going to cross multiply. So now when we cross multiply, we are going to do something like this. So it simply means that this one above, we multiply this one right here. So anything times 1 is that same thing. So 3x minus 4 times 1 give us 3x minus 4. And then this y up here, we multiply 5 here. So and 5 times 4 will give us 5y. So the next thing is that this is the x we are interested in. But first of all, this guy is still with 3. So there's something we can take out, which is minus 4. So we are going to pull out minus 4, or we are going to take it over to this other side. And remember, when minus crosses the equality sign, it's going to be a plus. So we are going to have 3x is equal to 5y plus 4. Next, we have 3 alongside with the x. So in this case, 3x simply means 3 times x. And we said when you have the multiplication will turn to division. So you are going to divide both sides by what is with x, and that is 3. So you are going to divide both sides of the equation by 3. So this will cancel this. And finally, we are left with x equal to 5y plus 4 over 3. Now, there are some important things I want you to know from this calculation. Now, one thing is that when you are given a number, let's say we are given 5 plus 3 minus 2 minus 8, for example. Now, if you are given an equation like this minus here belongs to 8. Take note of that. This minus here belongs to 2. This plus here belongs to 3. Then when you don't have anything at the front, just know that there's a plus here. So just know that it's an invisible plus. So this is plus 5. So if you are given minus 3 plus 8, now this minus goes with the 3, and then this plus goes with the 8. So take note of that. That's why this minus 4 over here, when we took it to the other side, that minus 4 will turn to plus 4. So take note of that. So that's a very important thing you ought to know. So in the second question, we are told to make h the subject of the formula. Now, this is the h we are interested in. So we have to separate this h from these other expressions, that are here. So now we have a is equal to half bh. But now we'll simply multiply 1 times ph. And 1 times ph will give us ph. So a can be written as bh over 2. So then we are going to cross multiply, but I'll make this to be over 1. We are going to cross multiply. Now BH times 1 give us BH. Then 2 times A will give us 2A. Again, we are interested in H, but there's a B attached to it. What we simply do is that we'll do what's called divide both sides. So we divide both sides by the coefficient of the unknown, by the coefficient of the variable. Let's use the word variable. By the coefficient of the variable. So divide both sides by the coefficient of the variable. So what does this thing mean? If, for example, I have 5A, if we are interested in A, the number or whatever you have before it is the coefficient. So if we have mx and we are interested in x, the coefficient is m. So is this m we are going to use to divide both sides. Now I just said something, divide both sides. There's a law in mathematics that says whatever you do to one side, you should also do it to the other side. So whatever I do, so let's just take it down. Whatever is done to one side of an equation, whatever is done to one side of the equation should be done to the other side as well. To one side, there's a side here, to one side of the equation should be done to the other side. Very important. It's just like you have two children. So whatever you do for one child, you should also do it to the other child. So whatever is done to be done to the other side. So take note of that. That's a very basic rule. So in this case, we are going to divide both sides by B, to divide this side by B. So B will cancel out B. So then the H is equal to 2A over B. So this is a very basic rule you ought to know. So remember, to divide both sides by the coefficient of the variable, that's whatever is attached to it. And then whatever you do to one side of an equation should also be done to the other side of the equation. In the third question, we have to make R the subject of the formula, which is V is equal to 4 over 3 pi R cube. So the first thing we can do is to multiply this numerator with this other one up here. So we have that to be V is equal to 4 pi R cube over 3. So the next thing we can do is to cross multiply. But before I do that, I'll make this to be over 1. So we are going to cross multiply. So 4 pi R cube times 1 will give us 4 pi R cube. Next, 3 times V up here will give us 3V. Now, mind you, we are interested in R. So we are going to divide every other thing that is attached to R in this case. So what's attached is 4 pi because they are multiplying. So we are going to divide by both sides by 4 pi. So when we divide, 4 pi will cancel out 4 pi. So we now have R cube is equal to 3V over 4 pi. So we have a power of 3 here. And remember, we are going to take this power to this other side. And remember, when you take power across the equality sign, it's going to be a root. So in this case, we have power 3. And when power 3 crosses this sign, it's going to be the cube root of whatever we have on the other side. So we are going to have the cube root of 3V over 4 pi. So this is going to be the final answer to this question. So in this case, R is equal to the cube root of 3V over 4 pi. So our fourth question here says, make T the subject of the formula. Now, if you look at this question, you find out that you have T here, and then you have T here. But there's a little difference in the sense that T is raised to power 1, and then T on the other side is raised to power 2. Now, when you encounter such question, it is important you solve them as what we call quadratic equation. So we are not going to go through the normal steps we used earlier. We are going to solve them as a quadratic equation. And how can we do that? We are going to apply the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is x is equal to minus b plus or minus root b square minus 4ac all over 2a. So we are going to apply the quadratic formula. And also there's also a general quadratic equation. We call it general quadratic equation. So general quadratic equation is what? Is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So these are the two things we are going to apply. whenever you encounter a question that has square on one side and then power 1, just simply know that that's the quadratic equation. So first of all, what we have is S is equal to UT plus half AT squared. So I'm going to rearrange this formula to look like this. So I'm going to rearrange this formula to look like this. So the first thing I'll do is that I'm going to take this S to this other side. And when I take S, nothing will be left there. So this is 0. So here we have UT, then we have plus. Now 1 times AT squared give us AT squared over 2 minus S. So this is a minus S. So bringing that up here, we have 0 is equal to UT plus AT squared over 2 minus S. Now we are going to arrange it in this quadratic equation general formula. So I'm going to write the one that has a square first, and this one that has a square first. So I'm going to write as AT squared over 2. Then I'm going to take the one without a square. That's plus UT. Finally, I'm going to take this constant minus S is equal to 0. Now, why are we doing this? When we do this, we are going to find out that A here is A over 2. So this is A over 2. The B here is similar to U. And then the C is equal to minus S. Please don't forget, when we have a minus, the minus is very, very important. So with that, we can now go ahead and solve. We now know that these are general formula. S is equal to minus B plus or minus root B square minus 4AC all over 2A. But in this case, it's not X we are making, sorry, the formula, we are making T. So I'm going to replace the X with T. So T is equal to minus, what's our B here? This is B when we compare. So B is U. So that will be a minus U plus or minus root. Now what's our B again? Our B is also U. So that will be a U square minus 4 times our A here is A over 2. So when you compare, so that's A over 2 times C, and C there is minus S. So this is very important. So we have this all over 2 times A is A over 2. Now our final answer will be minus U. That's a plus or minus. We are going to take this root. Now U square is going to remain U square. Now 2 into 2 is 1 and 2 into 4 is 2. So we have a 2 here. Now this minus here times minus here will give us plus. So that will be a plus 2 times A times S. So we are going to have that over. Now 2 will cancel out 2. So what are we left with? We are left with A. So our answer to this question is T is equal to minus U or negative U plus or minus square root of U square plus 2S over A. So that's the answer to that question. So the last question we are going to look at is this, which is make X the subject of the formula. So there are two ways we can solve this question, but I will just apply one way in solving this question. So what we have is 1 over X plus 1 over Y is equal to 1 over K. Now we are interested in X here. So this plus Y plus 1 over Y, I'm going to move it to this other side. So I'm going to have 1 over X is equal to 1 over K minus 1 over Y, because when plus 1 over Y goes to the other side, becomes minus 1 over Y. So here I have 1 over X. So the next thing we are going to do is that we are going to make these guys, or we are going to take the LCM because they are fraction. So the LCM of K and Y, if you want me to do that, so we have K and then we have Y. So K here, we have 1, Y. So we divide by Y now, 1, 1. So K times 1 give us KY. So our denominator will now be KY. Now KY divided by this K here will give us, so KY divided by K will give us Y. Then Y times the 1 up there is Y. Then minus KY here divided by Y will give us K. Then K times 1 is K. So what are we going to do? I will just show you a simple trick. Now this is simple trick. When you get to this point and whatever you want to be solved, the formula is done, just simply flip the above equation. So flip this. Remember, what you do to one side, do it to the other side of the equation. So you're also going to flip this side. So this is going to be X over 1 is equal to, this is going to be KY over Y minus K. So finally, x over 1 is same thing as x. So that will give us ky over y minus k. So this is the final answer to this question. So here are some self-assessment questions, and I urge you to pause this video and attempt this question, and thereafter you can come back to the video for the answers to these questions. So in the first question, we have p is equal to 2x plus 3 over 7. And in this question, you are going to make x the subject of the formula. In the second question, we have a is equal to pi r square plus h. And in this case, we are going to make r the subject of the formula. In the third question, we have v is equal to u plus at. And in this case, we are going to make t the subject of the formula. In the fourth question, we have x is equal to 3y minus 5 over 2y plus 1. And in this case, we are going to make y the subject of the formula. And in the last question, you have 1 over f is equal to 1 over u plus 1 over v. In this case, you are going to make f the subject of the formula. So here are the answers to the self-assessment questions.